Hey there, Bramblings. It's Uncle Luke here. Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in. I hope you're having a lovely spring so far. I know I am. Currently, I'm actually outside again. I'm in a park near my apartment, and you know what? I don't know. I've got this little microphone that I'm using right now. It's a little lavalier microphone. And it doesn't look super obvious when I'm outside, except, the fact that I have my laptop outside. It is a little bit strange. However, I just love being out here. One of the most healing places for me to be is outside. And now some of the noises you may hear is some of the local traffic. You may hear a SkyTrain going by. Yep, they're a little bit loud. But that's okay. I live in a city, and it's just part of the ambience, There's actually something kind of peaceful about city sounds to me. Yeah, maybe I'm just built weird, but it's kind of nice to know that everywhere around me, life is still going on, and that there are places in a city where you do have permission to just exist, like a park. I don't know, I'm really enjoying the fresh air right now. Anyways, you are all here because you're hoping to hear a really lovely conversation. And boy, oh boy, do I have a lovely conversation for you. Today's guest is actually one of my good friends, Gavin, aka GavCactus on Twitch. So Gavin is actually a Twitch streamer, and he's also a animator, and he's incredibly talented. He created his own little character that he drew himself and animated himself and set up some technology where he's able to speak and make his little character, aka a cactus, talk on Twitch. It's really incredible. And if you want to check out some of his streams, I'm going to be posting a link down below. However, in this conversation, we are going to be talking a little bit more about the animation process and how Gavin got really into drawing and art, and we do talk a little bit more about the creative process. Now, this conversation is nerdy, it is funny, it is wholesome. There is one thing I do want to mention for this podcast. If you ever hear this sound, well, that is actually Gavin and I mentioning Gavin's spouse. Now, one of my greatest values of this podcast is actually permission. I really do value having my guests' permission to talk on the podcast publicly. I really do value making sure that they are comfortable with how they sound, with the stories they tell. And I also try really hard to make sure that we're not telling someone else's story, but we're trying to focus on our own. And that's why editing is one of the things that I do that's really important to me, because I want my guests to feel as though they can have certain things that make them feel uncomfortable edited out if they want to. And something that I was not given permission to was to mention Gavin's spouse's name. So instead, what you're going to be hearing is Gavin's spouse's favorite Pokemon sound. So let me just explain a little bit. When playing Pokemon, the video game, when a Pokemon that you encounter appears, they make a sound. Now, typically in the TV show, they would be saying their name, because that's just how a Pokemon do in the TV show. Pikachu would just be going, Pikachu, Pikachu. However, in the video game, because they can't really do that, they have these own little sound bits, these really unique little sound bites that help identify what that Pokemon is. This is actually the soundbite of a lapras. Now, I will be posting a link to a picture of what a lapras looks like if you don't know what that is. But lapras is actually Gavin's spouse's favorite Pokemon. So, yeah, just thought I'd mention that because could you imagine just listening to this podcast and then all of a sudden that sound happens and you're just like, what? What's going on? What is this? So there you go. I just thought I'd explain. Anyways, without any further ado, let's just dive into this conversation. And yeah, guys, I'll see you on the other side.
There we go. Recording in progress.
Excellent. Haha. Hello. Yes. Well, how's it going, Gavin?
It's going all right. I'm doing okay.
Good. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. Where should we begin? Yeah, I'm first of all, I'm just like super excited to have you on the show. I know that you are an animator. Yeah, I don't know, like you and you've always just been so lovely, bringing me over, cooking me dinner, showing me some friendship these days. That I just thought, like, what can I do for these guys to show them how grateful I am? And I just thought, well, the most I can do is maybe bring them onto the podcast, and maybe this could be a great opportunity to like talking with people. Maybe some people can be like, "Ooh, Gavin, he's so smart." I don't know.
Hopefully, I said smart.
I'm sure you will. But yeah, I guess main question I want to start off with is like, would you be down to tell me a little bit about your story? You know, start from wherever, as old, as young, wherever. Is there any type of story you'd like to share with us before we begin?
I mean, back in the year of 1985, I was born. I
Nice.
don't think we need to go that far back. No, I mean, for the most part, you know a lot about me already. I think I find I'm starting to realize that the more that I talk with people that I know, the more that people only get bits and pieces of who I am over time. And I guess to me, that was always something that was natural. I thought that everybody did that, but that I'm learning more and more that people, share a lot of stories about who they are. So it's always
Mm,
interesting to when people ask me like, who are you? What do you do?
mm-hmm,
Um, but yeah, I mean, I was born in Canada, raised in Canada. I was born in Ottawa, Ontario. We recently being like 2 years ago, we moved from Ontario to BC.
mm-hmm.
I currently work in the animation industry. Like you said, I'm currently looking for a job at the moment. The writer's strike and the SAG-AFTRA strike did have a pretty strong effect on my position at the moment, but now that the strikes are over, we're looking to get back into to work. I'm starting to see like more specific job postings, which is great. But for the most part, I like to play games and hang out. That's why I started streaming. I mean, I've been streaming for in total like maybe 8 years, but I think
Wow.
only the last 2 years have I like taken the time to do it seriously and like actually buckle down and do something with it.
Mm,
I think more so as a hobby, but it's nice to put my focus on something, especially while I'm out of work at the moment.
mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
I guess before that, I did a lot of time in college for animation. I almost went into culinary arts, but decided to do animation instead. Other than that, I feel like, well, I'm a positive person who likes to joke around and make people smile and laugh, and
Yeah,
you know, that's my main goal.
good. Hey,
So, yeah.
yeah, I can see it. I can see it. I can also see you being a chef too. Like, yeah,
Mm.
great cook. Um, wow. Yeah, something else that I also like to do in my intros is I like to ask people like, are you drinking anything currently? Would you be willing to share your beverage with the audience?
Technically, I'm sharing one of my favorite beverages, a bubbly, at the moment. I've got
Yes.
the peach flavor bubbly. I love bubbly.
Me too.
It's my go-to for caffeinated. Well, not even caffeinated, just sodas. I guess it's kind of a
Carbonated
soda, carbonated. Yeah,
carbonated liquids.
yeah.
I love that. Yes. I'm also
Eat.
a bubbly stan. It is
Yeah.
like the best invention ever, even though it's like
So simple.
it's been invented. I love that it's been reinvented. It's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've got my cup of espresso. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've got. Everyone knows that I'm such a coffee nerd that I will literally talk about coffee for ages. And then I got my Superman cup of water.
Nice.
Gotta hydrate.
Yeah.
It's important. But yeah, thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it sounds as though there is a huge love for art for you. And I'm just curious, like, when did your love for art begin? How did you discover this passion, this talent?
It's interesting because like as a kid, I was always like drawing. I was always sketching stuff. But I don't think I ever like saw art as like my future at any point.
Hmm.
I think it was just one of those things where, I like to draw. I like to do little sketches of things and have like little characters and stuff. I'd even do when I'd be playing a video game. If there was a game that I wanted to do like a full completion of, I would sit down and make like graphs and I would like make
Hmm.
checklists and stuff, and then I would do little doodles with them and stuff. Like the most nerdy way that you could go about playing a video game.
I love that.
Um, but I think over time, my family is very much like, oh, I could see you doing animation. I could see you going into something artistic. And I was thinking more like I would end up being a chef or something, you know? I like
Hmm.
food. I like to cook. Um, I'm always trying to learn more about food and try to improve on my cooking. But then when I started like actually working and having a job consistently, it was always in fast food.
Mm,
And the more that I did it, the more I realized I don't want to do it. And not
mm,
even just fast food. I don't want to like make food for a job
mm,
because then it's like taking the passion out of it, you know? I want to be able to make food for people because people enjoy eating and people, you always get a nice positive response from people when you make a good meal. And that
hmm.
I think that to me matters more than like making a living off of it. So it was like this moment of realization, like I need to figure out what my future is.
Mm.
And I looked into animation and I'm like, you know what? People always told me I should look into this and I should go for it. And I think that was when I really took it seriously. And
Wow.
I applied for animation and here I am. I do it
Yeah,
full time now.
that's amazing. Um, wow. Yeah, no, you were mentioning that you're like you draw like little graphs and little doodles when you're like playing a video game. Was that like the first little things that you would start drawing, or like what were the first like little things you'd start
Oh.
drawing?
I think even before that, like if I would buy a player's guide for a game and it would have
Mm-hmm.
all the like the images and stuff in it, and I'd always be like, oh, these are so cool. And it was a lot of me like putting a piece of paper down and like tracing it and then drawing it on my own and doing it over and over. And then especially like Pokemon. Like when
Yes.
Pokemon first came out, it was like I was drawing all the Pokemon right out of the player's guides because it would have all the images. And you're like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to draw these guys. So
Yeah. Wow, I love that. And no, it's interesting. That's what's coming to mind is like you're mentioning that you would trace things sometimes, and there's like this voice in my head. I'm not sure where this voice is coming from, but it's telling me, you trace your art? Wow, like you're such a loser. And I'm curious, did you ever get like voices like that about like tracing or like copying other people? And like, where do you think that maybe comes from? I don't know. Do you pick up what I'm putting down?
yeah, no, I for sure. Like I know in high school there's a couple times where I'd just be in class tracing over something. And I know people would be like, isn't that cheating? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like I think people misunderstand the idea behind tracing. It's not like you're tracing it and claiming it as your own. It's a way to learn. And honestly, I think a lot of people don't understand is that tracing is a valid way to understand how other people do art, how other people come up with drawings and references. And if, I mean, it's very much like if somebody is showing you how to cook something, they might take your hand and kind of help you stir the pot so you understand how to stir the pot. It's very
Right.
much that same sense. You're borrowing that person's art to improve upon yourself.
Wow. Yeah. It's like we build our lives on the shoulders of giants,
Yeah, very much
right?
so.
Or yeah, no, like I remember tracing a picture of Red from the Pokemon manga,
Mhm.
and like he's a completely different character from Ash from the anime, who's a
Yeah.
completely different character from Red from the video game. Anyways, it's complicated.
Mm.
I remember tracing it, and suddenly, like something clicked in my head where it was like, oh, this is how you do anime people.
Mhm.
And it was like, whoa, okay, cool. And then suddenly, every time I needed to draw a person, I would just like channel Red from the manga.
Right.
And like, oh, every person now looks like they're from Pokemon. Yeah, no, it's just kind of funny how there's a lot of shame around this whole idea of like tracing or copying, and how, if you want to be an artist, you need to be original. And yeah, it drives me nuts a little bit.
It's hard to be original nowadays. I mean, you even look at music and there's so many different fights and like conflicts about, how one song sounds like another. But of course, like how are you going to be completely original when there's been thousands of years of people doing the same things and creating their own things and then people trying to improve upon that, and like you can only do so many versions of a song before it's no longer new. Like,
Yeah, well said. Yeah, and sometimes like, you know, taking using music again to like hammer in this metaphor a bit more, but like sometimes taking like maybe the drum beat or the bass line is all you really need for your ideas to start flowing, and suddenly now there's the original part of you that's coming
mhm.
out, but it really needed that like step up, or that booster or that foundation to just really get going. And yeah, it's just so strange how there's a weird shame around that. But yeah, no, I'm just curious, like, what's it like to see your drawings now come to life?
I mean, it's hard because like I've been doing it for more than 10 years now, and I think it's just one of those things when you first see it the first few times, you're like, oh well, oh hey, I did that. Oh, and
Mm-hmm.
I did that. But it still feels like a disconnect
Mm.
because you're not used to the idea that what you've done is now going on TV and people are seeing that.
Oh yeah.
And I think it wasn't until I worked at Krat Brothers Incorporated, who did like the Boomafoo, they did Krat's Creatures.
Oh my gosh. My childhood.
I worked on Wild Kratts, and we had somebody who took our credits and framed it with our like the credits where our name was, and they framed it as like an end of season gift to the people who worked on season 3.
Oh wow.
And it was kind of this moment of like, oh, like I'm on this show. Like I work here. And I think that's when it really hit. And I was like people are seeing what I do day after day. Like even when we would talk to family members who would, be like, "Oh, hey, my kids love that show." And you're like, "Oh, hey, I'm the guy. I work on that show." You're like, "Yeah,
Aw.
that's why they're talking about it." It's like, "Oh, okay, that's neat." So I think that it's more when you start to hear other people like, "Oh, I like that show," or "I've seen
Mm.
that," and then it's kind of this moment of like, "Oh, like that means a lot to me."
Mm.
I think that's when it really hits. Nowadays, it's more like I think I'm used to it now, so it's like, "Oh yeah, I did that." But
Mm-hmm.
for sure, like early on when it first hit, it was a different feeling and kind of a little
Mm-hmm.
surreal, I think.
No kidding. Wow. I guess it's a little bit different being in the chair holding the pen or the stylus actually doing the work and seeing the transition from like lifeless 2D to like life filled being essentially, and knowing all the little intricate details that went into bringing life to this character. It almost kind of makes me think of, when you say like a word over and over and over again, it doesn't really sound like a word anymore.
Hmm.
It must be something like that, because I kind of get that when I edit podcasts. It's like not just a word, but it's like a whole conversation
Right.
where I'm like, did I even sound smart? Am I stupid? Lots of
I
that doubt comes in.
Yeah, I get the same way going back and editing streams or like saving the VODs. And sometimes I'll be skipping through to see if there's anything that I need to cut out. And it's like, I don't even remember talking about this. Like, what is this even? When did this happen? It's just something that kind of passed at a point and just left my brain, you know?
Yeah, and there's almost like a nice surrender to it too, like especially if you like try to eliminate the shame from it and stop judging yourself and like you just kind of let it be. It's kind of like one of those moments of like, wow, okay, you said that. Neat little time capsule moment.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what I like about it too, because I've always talked with other people who are like, I want to do a podcast, I want to do streaming, but I don't think anybody would listen. Like, why would they find me interesting? And it's like there are millions upon millions of people in this world. There are billions of people in this world. There's going to be people who like you just because you're who you are. And
Mm,
I think it's always like trying to remind people like you have friends because those people like you. There's going to be people who listen because they like you.
hmm. Wow, and you know what? This is really making me think about the next question I was going to ask you. But, something I talk a lot about in this podcast is the importance of safe spaces and using a safe space as a place to do your creativity or your art. And I was just curious, like, what does a safe space kind of look like for Gavin? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Describe your safe space, if you will.
Hmm. Boy, I think it's changed a lot over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think of my safe space as being sort of like the basement in my mom's house because that's where I spent a lot of time. It was kind of a space that I had set up, had my own furniture, and it felt warm, I suppose. I think no matter what, it has to be a space that I'm comfortable with who exists in it. And
Okay.
I think that, you go to like a library or something to sit and work, and there's a lot of strangers around.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of letting those people into your space, whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the hardest for me.
Mm,
But if it's people that I love and trust, who like my office, like being at home,
yeah.
it's comfortable. It's a place where my spouse is, and I'm always happy to have my spouse just home and nearby, or if
Mm-hmm.
we have friends over. It's a space that I feel comfortable in, to the point where I will let people who I trust into. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what a safe space is for me, at least.
Yeah. Totally. And I'm curious, it like you're describing a lot of the people in that safe space, which I definitely agree. Like a safe place is a person for a lot of people. When it comes to like your creative process, what does your safe space kind of look like in that regards? For me, like I can definitely say that I actually need like a library or like I need a coffee shop, because I find that my space at home here is too safe. And I let myself get away with like little pleasures, little frivolities here and there. And I completely like forget about doing the things that like fill me up creatively.
Hmm.
So I need to be out of my home and I need to be in a place that maybe is a little bit public, but there's an intention
Hmm.
that like I'm going to sit down and I'm going to get my work done and I'm going to move through my creative process. And I feel as though like my laptop, headphones in, at a coffee shop or a library, I feel like I can like make those mistakes because no one else is judging me, no one else is watching me. Also, like I'm not outwardly making a fool out of myself, so there's another little variable there. But yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. Can you relate to what I'm saying?
I like for sure I can understand sort of that idea behind it. I think putting myself in a place where I can be goofy and give myself like that over safe feeling helps in a lot of ways. Being
Hmm.
able to like put on music and is for sure like a definite creative way to it's a good way to motivate me creatively. Try to play music that puts me in the feeling of whatever I'm working on, you know?
Hmm.
But honestly, even maybe before that, I think a space in which I can share ideas with somebody,
Hmm.
I think is possibly like one of the best situations because I definitely have a lot of ideas of like stories and stuff that I like to work on, or I'll have ideas just on a drawing that I want to do. And if I can open up to somebody and mention it and sort of have a little bit of back and forth with somebody about that idea,
Hmm.
I feel like that drives me creatively. I feel like that
Hmm.
motivates me to be creative. So, in a sense, it's almost like my safe space is the space that I build upon that creativity before putting it down on paper or on my computer
I love that.
in an interesting way. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And I'm definitely feeling as though like connection with people is the driving force of your safe space.
Hmm.
At least that's what it's sounding like. And like that fills my heart up. I think that's just so special. That's so incredible. Yeah, I kind of almost feel like I'm catching myself right now reflecting like, gosh, Luke, do you have like any other people you feel like you could be creative with right now? I'm like, I guess when I interview people,
Hmm.
there's a sense of creativity, there's a sense of connection. So yeah, I guess yes, I do relate to that. I love that.
I mean, this in itself is
It
creative
is.
all on its own. So I think you're actively doing it while creating that art, you know?
You know, it's so funny, yeah, just talking with you and then having a little moment of reflection. And here's me before this conversation thinking, like, no, like, I'm a solo creative, grumble, grumble. I don't connect with people when I'm creative, but like, no, that's the biggest lie I've ever told myself. That's so wild. No, it's good. Thank you for helping me realize that.
I think it's something that even people who spend a lot of time painting and things like that, I think we draw our most of our inspiration from others, whether we're aware of it or not.
Hmm.
Even if it's not like a driving force for our creativity, I think it's still something that helps build upon it, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, it's like art is how we express our need for belonging.
Hmm. For sure.
Yeah. Mm. Mm. That was a good little quote there. But you know, with that being said, what comes to mind now is belonging and how we want to belong to a group, but how often humankind, when we want belonging, we choose to fit in instead. We choose to cut parts of ourselves away. And I think, in a sense, when we fit in, we fear failing, or we feel fear other people's opinions
Hmm.
a whole lot. And yeah, I'm now thinking about, failure. And I'm just curious, like, what do you think about the concept of failure, and especially in a creative lens?
Well, I've had a lot of failure.
Same.
Um, when I first started in college, I went into a pre-animation program. It was a program that kind of prepares you to go into the animation program.
Hmm.
If you feel that you're lacking in some sort of creative way to be able to do animation, it's your chance to kind of work on that and build upon it so that you can actually go into the field one day and build upon that.
Yeah.
Um, it was probably not the best time for me to go to college
Mm.
because my father had just passed away that summer,
Mm.
which is a lot of the reason why I was able to go to college
Oh.
because the money we had gotten from his life insurance was able to pay for it. And it was a lot of dealing with home life and trying to balance school, and there's so much change because I'm making new friends. I was in a relationship that was ending at the time,
Mm,
and just my family was going through a lot, and it was too much to maybe try to focus all my energy into, and it ended up really taking its toll. I didn't even make it through the whole year of
mm,
school, and it was one of those things that looking back now, I would have waited a little bit longer before doing it.
mm-hmm.
But I went back the next year. I was able to finish pre-animation. I went into animation. I spent, I think, total 7 years in the animation program.
Wow.
And it's because I had gone through first year animation, passed, went into second year thinking like, oh, I'm going to be great now. This is so good. But I had a lot of trouble with traditional animation,
Mm,
and learning to put like timing down on paper. There was some sort of block that I didn't understand. And I think more so now that I understand more about myself, I think there's a certain lack of like brain to paper that I have.
mm,
And it's only recently I've been learning about aphantasia and realizing that I don't have a visual memory or like a visual mind, where in the same sense, I think visually, like, and don't know how to explain it. It's like
oh,
I've become aware that people when they're picturing something in their mind, they're
uh-huh.
literally like seeing an image,
Mm, mm-hmm.
which I don't. I don't see an image. I see an image as in like I can think about what it looks like, but I
Mm.
don't actually see it physically in my mind.
Okay, yeah,
And so I think the more that I look back, I'm like, I have that disconnect of putting my ideas onto paper,
right.
and maybe because I didn't know that at the time, or maybe because I have learning difficulties, maybe those two things combined without knowing it were kind of getting in my way.
Wow.
And so I did 2 years of second year animation and failed both years.
Oh,
And it was like this kind of feeling of like I'm never gonna get through it. Like
mm,
I'm just gonna keep doing this over and over again. But I think at the time, like I had friends who were doing 3D animation, who were, having a great time in the program. And I was like, I'm never taking the time to look at digital animation. I'm going to take the time, I'm going to see what it's about. And I ended up doing second year animation in the digital stream. And it was like all that trouble I had with the traditional stuff was gone. And it was like,
mm,
I can do this. This makes sense to me. It was like the right wires were plugged in and everything was running again.
wow.
And I ended up finishing animation completely the next year. And like, we had this, like, at the end of the school year, we have a bunch of studios come in, they look at the students' work, and they'll give you like interviews and stuff. I ended up being one of the first people chosen to go for an interview, and
Oh,
people were coming up and like, wow, like you did a really good job with this lighting. This animation is really good. I was getting comments. I'm like, my stuff isn't this good. I don't deserve the attention, but it's like I think I put myself in that space of like I'm not that good. I'm
mm,
just this is what I'm able to do now.
mm,
And almost kind of looking at 3D as like it was like the easy section, but I think now seeing it and realizing like it wasn't the easy section. It was just that was where my brain worked the
mm,
best, and I needed to kind of allow my brain to do what works and not try to push it through what doesn't work.
wow.
And
Shivers. Why do I have shivers? That's so amazing. Keep
it's
going.
I just think it taught me a lot about failing though, because not giving up, having support from who is like, I'm gonna stick with you. You can do this. I believe in you. And like having them light that fire under my ass every time I was getting down on myself helped a
Mm-hmm.
lot. And I think having the support makes a big difference. Knowing that people will be there to back you up no matter what. And I know a lot of people don't have that, and it can be really hard, but it's not giving up on yourself. And I learned a lot from those
Mm-hmm.
failures. I think I learn more when I fail than I do any other time. If I'm in a studio environment and I'm starting on a show that I've never worked on before, you have to get used to the style of the show.
Yeah.
And it's oftentimes a lot different from the style of the last show that you worked on. And sometimes it takes a little bit to pick it up. And so there's been moments where somebody will come up to me and be like, "Hey, I see you're having trouble with this. I need you to really focus and try to pick it up." And it's like one of those things like, "Oh, I'm failing, but this is my chance to learn what it is that I'm having trouble with and capitalizing on it and picking it up." And I think that is one of my favorite things. Like
Yeah.
I definitely don't try to fail. But when you are failing and then later on you'll be talking to your supervisor like, "Oh, this is great. You're doing so well." And people are like, putting your name out there for the next job and the next job. And it's like that is a huge uplifting feeling for me. And
Yeah.
knowing that I was able to get past that struggle and
Yeah.
and you know come out on top of it.
Yeah. I've got like two or three things that came to mind with your story there. So powerful. Like I got shivers. I love that. But the first thing that comes to mind is I'm thinking about Dr. Shelley Moore. She's the head inclusion researcher at UBC. But what she likes to say, especially when working with those with, say, like exceptionalities of, like, say, autism or cerebral palsy or some sort of different neurodiversity, is that we have to presume competence. And what she means by that is sometimes people are shoved through systems that aren't made for them. And when they ultimately can't measure up to the expectations of the systems, they feel shame,
Hmm.
right? And the second thing that's coming up for me is how shame dissolves when in connection with others and when we talk about it. And so, what I was picking up from you is that when the shame of messing up or the shame of failing
Hmm.
happened, you went to your spouse and just said, like, "Hey, I'm feeling like crap." And then there's being like, "No, no, you're not crap. You're great." And how, that type of connection dissolves some sort of shame in what failure can be, which can be like a shame spiral for a lot of people. It dissolved that whole concept, and it sounds like it created this like understanding of like this is how to improve.
Hmm.
And yeah, wow. Oh, I love it. I love it. Wow. Yeah, no, it's I've mentioned this on the podcast a few times before, but my favorite rewording for the word failure comes from Dr. Sarah Lewis, and she likes to use the poetic term blankness,
Mm.
right? It's kind of referring more to the washing away, the clean slate, and now you have a blank canvas to start anew.
Yeah.
And what I also love about that is that it evokes the real feelings of fear that blankness has, right?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, a blank canvas? What am I going to do with this? What if I start and it's crap again, right? And
Then it's crap.
then it's crap. Exactly.
Mhm.
Oh, man.
I think I mean that whole idea of like nothing left to lose is such a good example of knowing that if you have nothing left to lose, then all you can do is try and you're already getting somewhere. You're already making progress.
Mm,
And I think a lot of people worry that if they ever reach that point of nothing left to lose, it's over. But it's only over if you give up. And I'm not one to give up on anything. So,
yeah. No, it's funny. Like, what's coming to mind is also like Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender,
yeah.
and how he was so afraid of losing his honor, quote unquote,
Hmm.
and his honor meant everything to him. And I think what's interesting with that show, especially with his character, is that he kind of did lose everything. His father just made him feel like, here's one little last thread to hold on to. Regain your honor, capture the avatar. And I think until he finally realized that that thread was broken really long time ago, did he finally feel like he could reinvent himself.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy what we do to feel like we can belong to the group. We just do
Hmm.
so much crazy stuff.
I mean, it's true. And even like I find nowadays, even trying to connect with others, it's hard because you often meet people that you're like, I want to be better friends with you than we are.
Mm,
But maybe they don't feel the same way. Maybe they don't even think about it like that. And it's like you try really hard to be like, "Oh, I like those things too."
mm,
And it's hard not to want to follow that and keep trying, but it's like you also have to know when to let yourself be comfortable with who you are and not worry so much about what that person thinks. Or maybe if they don't want to work on being better friends with you, there's lots of other people who are really good friends with you. Don't be
hmm.
afraid to put your time energy into them instead and build upon that. So,
Yeah, and I love that you bring that up because it makes me think about, boundaries and
mhm,
authenticity. And it's another thing I've mentioned on the podcast before, but I think it's just so imperative to the creative process and to belonging as well, is that, you need to set up your own boundaries and figure out what's okay and what's not okay for yourself
yeah.
so you can actually be yourself,
Hmm.
right? Because if you're constantly cutting parts of yourself away just so you can like make someone else happy, are you really yourself anymore?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that you bring up boundaries because I feel like that's something people don't do enough is they don't give themselves boundaries in that same sense. I think we think of boundary as something to put to protect yourself or to put
Hmm.
yourself in a safe place. But at the same time, like you can put those boundaries on yourself to keep yourself from going too far and hurting someone or
Yeah.
putting yourself in an awkward position that could hurt you. And
Hmm.
it's hard though. You got to make sure you have to play that weird line of setting boundaries, but not like giving yourself unnecessary rules to follow, you know?
Yes. Yes. Like the goal should be being 100% authentically you and not being a version that you wish you could be.
Mm.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe the version you wish you could be is not as cool of a version as who you already are.
Yeah. Wow. Wait, hold on. Say that one more time.
A version of who you wish you could be may not be as cool as the version of who you already are. Just so that
Woo!
that idea that you are already great as you are. You don't need to try and impress everybody, you know.
Wow. Wow. Well said. Well said. I love that. Damn. That's going to be like a banner quote.
I mean, to be fair, if I'm anything, it's authentic. I don't know how to be anything but me. I
That's
don't
awesome.
I don't want to be anything but me. So,
Same.
hmm.
Well, I have my moments, but I'm working on it.
Hmm.
Now, speaking of being nothing else but you, I realize that sometimes you're not just you, you're sometimes a cactus.
I mean, that's just another part of me. That's all.
It's just another part of you, and I love it. Now, yeah, you're mentioning that you're doing a lot of streaming on Twitch these days,
Hmm.
and I'd love to just learn a little bit more about like how that started, what that's been like for you. It's been 8 years. What? Tell me
Yeah.
more.
Well, it originally started because I was just on PlayStation 4 playing games. I'm very much I like single player games. I'm very much I want to enjoy this game myself. I'm learning
Mm,
to break out of that and to play more multiplayer games and try to use it as a way to enjoy my time with others. Um,
mm,
but I used to, PlayStation 4 has a streaming function. You can connect Twitch directly to PlayStation 4, hit the stream button, and it just starts a stream. Even back then it was just kind of just me playing a game. I would have a chat, but it wasn't like I was talking to people would just kind of come in and chat with you, and you just kind of like, oh, I see what people are saying.
mm,
But it was very sporadic. It was very much like once in a while. I remember playing like Final Fantasy 15 a lot while I was streaming. And then eventually, putting a mic in and talking with people who come in. And I had a friend at the time who was doing a lot of streaming. I'm not sure she even streams now. Her name was Salty Sketches, but it was definitely, for me, that was more of learning and seeing what streaming could be. There's even a time where she had me go over and on one of her streams and to do an animation build
Wow.
on stream for her. And we were just hanging out and chatting, and people were coming in like, "Oh, who's this guy? This guy with the beard?" And I'd be like, "Oh," starting to get a little self-conscious because people are looking at me like, "Oh, okay, like here I am now on display for people in a different way." But it was a lot of fun, and I think it was just sort of a point where it wasn't really something I could do as much anymore. It was more focusing on home life, building a life with my spouse, getting
Yeah.
married. So all that time was kind of put into other things for a long time. And then the pandemic happened, and suddenly there's all this free time. And it became this moment of like connecting with people again. And Discord became a
Mm.
big part of that, especially because at the time Among Us was huge. I was like, I
Right.
want to play Among Us. Like, this game looks like fun. And going online and trying to find people who are playing it. And that's how I ended up meeting like Misaki and everyone. And they all stream. And it's like, oh, like I'm playing with streamers now, I guess. Like, this is something I never really thought, about. It was just a
Yeah.
way to connect with people. And the more that we did that, I started to think like, oh, I have a computer now. I could set up OBS. I can stream on here. I can play games that aren't just PlayStation games. I could play other things instead.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very haphazard kind of start and kind of
Mm.
seeing what I could do. And it wasn't really the time because then we were kind of looking at other things like moving across the
Mm.
country. And so when we got out to BC, it was like, okay, I have a computer. I have a really good job. I have I work from home now. So this is a good opportunity for me to maybe focus on this. And
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like, okay, if I'm gonna stream, I want to go into a stream with an idea. I
Mm-hmm.
want to approach it with something in mind. And a lot of people that I know are VTubers. It's like, okay, how about I like cactuars from Final Fantasy. Cactuars are really cute. They're super cool. I'm sure I've got a cactuar around here somewhere. I've got like cactus things everywhere. Oh, here, I've even got like a little cactus or cactuar sticker. Like little cactuars.
Aw,
If
look at
if you know
them.
Final Fantasy, they beep beep.
Yeah.
I've loved
That
cactuars for
that
so long.
sticker has like little blushies on it
Yeah.
too. That's so cute.
So I've always had a big love for cactuars. Even when I was like seeing my other friends' streams, I would go in and I'd be like, "You should draw a cactuar doing this." Like it was always my thing. Even if you have me on Discord, I've got a different cactuar for every server that I'm in. Every
Wow.
like even just my main one is different from all the server ones that I'm in. I was like, you know what? I like cactuars. I'm gonna be a cactuar, and that'll be my personality, for a
Yeah.
bit. And it was even like when we were playing Among Us and stuff. I think everybody saw my cactuar profile pictures and stuff, and that's how they associated me because they hadn't seen my face. And
Mm-hmm.
so we would do like Gartic Phone, like a drawing game, and we would
Mm-hmm.
do prompts, and somebody would put like Gavin doing this, and they would always draw me as a cactuar doing that
Aw.
thing. So it was very much sort of all these things lining up to be a cactuar.
Yeah.
And because I'd met all those people in Among Us, cyan was my color for
Yeah.
Among Us. So I was always a cyan cactuar. And I was like, okay, that's my thing. I'm a cyan cactuar. That's how I'm gonna go into this. And so
Okay.
when I started streaming more often, you know, I was a cactuar VTuber and
Mm-hmm.
was a little rocky at first because I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was like, we're going with it. And then that was sort of about when we started to get more into streaming, and they approached it very much with this. I want my stream to look nice. Like I'm gonna
Mm.
make it look good before we do this.
Right.
and they helped me refine how my stream looked
Nice.
so much.
Yeah.
Like the even now the setup I have is one that they built for me because they just had it figured out and they're like, I'm gonna make yours and on your affiliate anniversary you're gonna start using it. I'm like, okay, you got it.
Aw.
So and then I think there was a point where I realized like the more that I stream, the less that I want to be a cactuar, like this brand character. I want to be
Yeah.
something more original. I guess more with the idea that I don't want to just be like cactuar. And even I guess a little bit at the same time, I don't want like Square Enix to be like, you're using our character for your own benefits. Maybe not a good idea.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'll come up with a design. I'll design my own cactuar and we'll go from there. And
Okay, yeah.
now that's what I look like is the that little cactus who
Yeah.
the little cyan cactus.
Yeah. No, it's so cute. I really love your character on
Hmm.
Twitch. And what I'm also picking up is that there's another example of building your life on top of the shoulders of giants. Like another example of like maybe tracing,
Hmm.
but then using it to become original again.
Yeah.
Right? Was this planned? No.
I think that's something
um,
you'll see a lot on Twitch too, is that if you go and look, you can find like just about any cartoon character in some form or fashion in other VTubers. Like there, I know there's a streamer who looks like a Betty Boop character. You know, it's just there's that style being, in a sense, ported into a different
mm,
style that somebody else has
mm,
come up with and created their own thing out of it, you know? So,
yeah. No, what was that's that famous quote where it's like imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery,
yeah,
right?
that's right.
Right? Yeah, it's just yeah, it makes sense there. And then wow, I don't know what else. I just think that's a really fun origin story there. I love that. Yeah, so I guess that also explains why you are also a cactus because of the characters from Final Fantasy. Yeah, I guess all that's really coming to mind now is like, if money wasn't a factor and status or shame wasn't a factor as well, like what do you think your ideal life would look like?
Uh, Comfortable.
Heck yes,
I
me
think
too.
for me, I'm not I don't need like the big house and all the things that go with it. I like stuff. Like I can't help it. Stuff is nice to have.
Yeah.
I guess it's more, I think ideally it would be the lack of limitation. I think that would
Mm,
be nice. I mean, we're always worrying so much about do I have enough money for this? Can I afford this? Would I ever be able to do this? It would be not having that limitation, just being able
mm.
to enjoy life without that concern, without that worry, and to do it with the people I love.
It's making me think about my own life now too. Yeah. No, I think for me, I think if yeah, money, status, shame wasn't a factor, oh, yeah, I'd be having conversations like this all the time. And I would be trying to stream myself a bit more.
Hmm.
That's been a challenge, just trying to like get myself to stream. I'm finding there's a similar energy to like going to the gym
Hmm.
with streaming. Like it's so funny when it's just for myself to play a video game. It's like, yeah, easy. Plug it in. Time wasted, time enjoyed.
Hmm.
It's great, but when I put like an intention to being more of like a content creator or like putting on a different hat as opposed to just like existing, some sort of energy comes over me where it's like I want to procrastinate. So that would be nice to just like get rid of that, have a better system for me to do that. And yeah, comfortable. That's a great word.
I
Ugh.
think comfort for me is always it's like the thing I strive for. Whether it's just like being comfortable at home with my spouse and hanging out, or like laying in bed and just finding the most comfortable position, like
Mm,
comfortable in my career, knowing that I'm safe and happy. Like it's it's making sure too that when you say comfortable, it's comfortable in the way things are without being comfortable with where it's at. Like, if that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
like not staying there because it's comfortable.
Yeah, it
And
sounds like you're saying there's a difference between comfortable and complacency,
mhm,
right?
yeah,
Where like complacency is just like not doing anything to make things better. Where comfortable, for me at least, I also think of the term mastery when I think of comfortable because mastery is the constant reach for a goal that's just beyond your fingertips,
right.
right? And for me, like the goal that's just beyond my fingertips is comfortable. It like is the feeling of being comfortable.
Hmm.
And so, complacency is not reaching where mastery is reaching.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense,
No,
but
yeah, I think it makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can always be
yeah.
improving on things in your life. And I think being comfortable doesn't mean that you've improved to the point where it's done. It's knowing that where you're at is good and you can keep building on that and keep improving on
Mhm.
that, but being happy with where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, what's also coming to mind now is contentment.
Hmm.
That's like another great word where contentment, I was reading up a little bit about it in my book Atlas of the Heart, and they describe it as like a comfortable pair of jeans or like an old pair of jeans that you're used to wearing.
Hmm.
And there was a part of me that felt disappointed when I read that. So I'm like, shouldn't contentment feel like the best thing ever? But maybe that's not actually healthy to always wanting to live a life that's always the best.
Mm.
I find that there could be some quote unquote trauma in joy.
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes any sense.
yeah,
Like
it does.
it's one of those feelings that is very vulnerable and very intense, and contentment is one of those feelings that, yeah, maybe it is humdrum, maybe it is a little bit boring, but maybe it's the optimal place for people to heal
Mm.
and for people to start changing, start making mistakes, start failing, start working on their creative process. And you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
maybe that's the soil that we need to plant our seeds in.
absolutely. I think if you're always striving to be the best at something, that sounds exhausting. Like trying
Yeah.
to be the best, like, or even just looking for like euphoria almost in everything. It's
Mm,
like, I like that euphoric feeling, but if it's constant, it kind of gets boring after a while. Like it's no longer euphoric.
true. True. We need that contrast,
Yeah.
right?
You need the waves, the highs and the lows.
Heck yes. Wow. What's so funny is that this conversation started off with like animation and art, and it's turned into a life chat. And I feel like it's a very common thing with me. Well, Gavin, I was curious. Would you be down to jump into a little rapid fire session to wrap things up a little bit?
Sure, let's do it.
Dope. Okay. Okay. Ready? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
First question. What does vulnerability mean to you?
Ooh. Um, Opening yourself up to things, whether or even
Mm,
more so people, I think for me. I like people. People are okay. Um,
yeah.
but letting people in, I think
Mm.
that's vulnerability. Really sharing who you are with somebody.
Ooh. Wow. That's awesome.
Hmm.
I agree. What's your favorite movie?
Who? I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite at the moment. I think it's changed a lot. I always like to say like one of my favorite movies is A Knight's Tale because it's
Oh,
one of the first movies to actually make me cry about something, which I think people look at A Knight's Tale like that movie made you cry, but it's always the father, Oric's father, goes
yeah.
blind
Yeah.
in the years that Oric's been away, and Oric's like, going to see his dad and like trying to be like inconspicuous and not really share who he is, but can't really help but be like, your son has come home, and just watching his father's face like react and like realize like this is my son. Oh,
Oh,
it kills me every
well,
time.
I think there was that one line that his father said to him when he finally realized like this is his son, where it was like, did he finally follow his footsteps to know the way or something?
Yep.
Like I'm not quoting it perfectly,
No.
but I remember that line and I actually cried. Yeah,
Yeah.
I cried too. Oh man. Oh my gosh. Also what comes to mind with that movie is like the end credits scene where they're all like in the bar drinking and then they have a farting contest.
Yeah. Hey, fart humor is always good humor.
It's the best. It's the best. Um what's your favorite meal?
Hmm. Uh, actually, yeah. I was gonna say it used to be shepherd's pie, but I think it's still shepherd's pie. But I think
Hey.
food wise, it's a shepherd's pie. But I think it's because I think of it as this like big dish that you can
Mm,
share with a lot of other people. So I think of it
mhm.
as a family meal. I think
Yeah.
that alone is what makes it my favorite.
No, a family meal.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh man. Now, speaking of meals,
Hmm.
if you could have a dinner with any three people, living, dead, or fictional, who would they be and why?
Ooh. I feel like I should have a deep answer for this, but I don't know if I do.
We don't have to go
Um,
deep. It's fine. Don't worry.
Boy, what three people? I gosh, you know, the just three people I love. The people I like spending time with. He would be one of them for sure. I
Totally.
think it would just be, you know, actually maybe this is a good way to put it. I'd want to have it with because is like my go-to when it comes to like food and
Yeah.
stuff. Like they're my date for dinner all the time.
Aw.
Um, but then I think I would say my niece, one of my oldest niece. I have
Yeah.
two nieces and a nibbling and
A what?
a nibbling.
A nibbling?
Yeah,
What's that?
they're a niece or nephew who doesn't identify as any one gender. So they're a
Oh my
nibbling.
gosh. A nibbling. That's
Yeah.
so cute.
Uh,
Okay.
I think I would say my oldest niece though, because she's at that point, she's about to start college,
Mhm.
and she's like at that point of learning what she's going to be doing, And I think to have a
Mm.
meal and like talk about it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, maybe I'll just say my two nieces, my nibbling, because I can see like how they're growing and spend time with them, and it's something I haven't really gotten to do since we moved out here.
Mm.
Uh, I don't really get to see them as much. I'm very close with them because I don't know, they were just a big part of my life in college and stuff, and I think they're a big part of what helped me through some really tough times.
Wow.
So,
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I connect so much with that because that's what this whole project is dedicated for me is my nephew and I guess I haven't really said, but soon to be niece.
oh, nice.
Um, yeah, they are my bramblings. And yeah, that fills my heart up when you say that because yeah, there's something super special about, watching the next generation grow up and yeah,
Yeah, they're our
man,
future.
they are.
Yeah.
Future. Um, do you have a favorite musician?
Um, Boy, that's tough. I
I
think,
know, isn't it?
I think,
Or like I could broaden out the question and say musician or band or just genre of music if, being granular with that whole thing is a little too tricky.
I think
Not
even
a not a problem.
if I were to really refine it down to certain things, I would say my favorite genre would probably be alternative. I think, and nowadays, not even just like alternative rock, but like alternative, like the encompassing alternative, because I think that means so much more now than it
Mm,
used to. I think even looking back, like what classic rock used to be, I think
yeah,
now it's expanded so much. Um, Gosh,
totally.
I
Well,
think
that's a good answer.
I don't know if I could. be more specific than that.
No, hey, that's perfect.
Hmm.
Do you have a favorite Pokemon? And or you are willing to expand and do like a favorite team of six?
Ooh, favorite team of six. Hmm. I would definitely put like Cacnea on that team. I think
Aw,
people would expect a cactus, and there would definitely be one. Um,
yeah.
as far as favorite Pokemon, Flygon is absolutely my
Ooh,
favorite. I don't know what it is. I like Dragon Pokemon.
yeah.
Um, and there's something about Flygon. He's just I think it's one of those Pokemon that it seems just a buddy type, like, hey, it's my buddy Flygon. I think I like that
Yeah.
about it. It's not like so big like a Dragonite. Feels like,
Yeah.
like, oh wow, this is a great Pokemon. But I think just in general is like your friend that you're hanging out with. So I think I like him.
Totally.
Um,
There's so much friendliness in a Flygon design. I hear that.
oh yeah.
Anyways, continue.
I would want a Mudkip on my
Aw,
team. I love
yes.
Mudkips. Mudkips are my favorite starters.
So Mimi, but
Yeah.
that's fine.
Second favorite, Turtwig.
Aw, yeah.
I think it's the little guys. I like them a lot.
The little guys, yeah.
Boy,
That's four.
four. It's another. There's some other really good Pokemon. Zubats at some point it
Okay.
became really, really good Pokemon for me. I like them a
Oh heck
lot.
yeah.
Hmm. Oh, Octillery.
Oh,
I like octopuses. They're cool. They're so weird
they are
and
cool.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And that one's like a tank.
Mm-hmm.
A tank octopus. Yes,
Yeah.
you heard me right. Um, cool. Okay, let's recap. So we got Cacnea, Flygon, Mudkip, Turtwig, Zubat,
Yeah.
and oh my god, you just said it. Oh my god, why did I just forget?
I can tell you, but it's fun just letting you figure this out.
You just said it. You just said it. Oh my god. I'm so
It
embarrassed
has
that my brain literally
tentacles.
stopped. Octillery. Yes. Wow, that was embarrassing.
I
I
mean,
was trying so hard to remember all the other ones that I forgot the most recent one.
it's later in the day. It's fair.
Thank you. No, that's awesome.
Hmm.
I love that. Okay, well, final question. What is something you want to tell the next generation of humans growing up in the world?
Ugh, boy, give each other a chance.
Wow.
Uh, it's difficult because at the same time, I feel like there's people who don't deserve the chance.
Mm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's try to leave the world in a better place than it is. Like
Mm.
we're always looking and seeing, especially nowadays, how the world is changing. And I think right now it feels like it's not a lot of good changes. And
Yeah.
I think if we have a generation who can come in with the idea and the expectation to improve upon the world,
Mm.
maybe things will be okay. But
Yeah. Maybe.
hmm,
Yeah, no, there's something that kind of hit me when you said give people a chance, though. Like, I know that you also mentioned some people don't have a chance, shouldn't get a chance, sorry, but wow, I don't know, something hit me there. Like, I don't think anyone's ever said that
hmm,
on the podcast. And yet, like, there's something powerful about it. Wow, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. Um, yeah, but now I'm noticing a little bit of grief come over me because, like, I guess that's the end of our conversation.
no,
Thank you so much, Gavin, for coming on.
yeah, well, thank you for having me on. It was fun. It's fun to, I'm very much this kind of person who just likes to sit and talk about simple things, deep things. I'm all about it.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you'd like, I'd love to bring you back on. We could talk about something else.
Cool.
I don't know what yet, but yeah, I really enjoyed this,
Yeah,
and yeah, thank you.
thank you.
right, my friends. There we go. That was the conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. Gosh, I know I did. I don't know, when I listen to this conversation, I just smile. I just think it was so wholesome, so cute, and also really important and valuable and insightful. And I just want to give a heartfelt thanks to Gavin for hopping onto the podcast, for being a pleasure to edit. And I gotta say, like, that's just a compliment to how good of a speaker you are, Gavin. Yeah, you know what, guys? If you enjoyed this podcast as well, feel free to share it. There's no one's stopping you. You don't have to not share. You don't have to feel self-conscious. You don't have to feel like you should just leave it alone. Like, share this podcast around. If you're feeling inspired, if you want to show this to someone, if something that was said kind of lit you up inside, share it. And, maybe let us know. You can follow us on our Instagrams or Twitch or any of our social medias there. And, feel free to just let us know how the conversation went to you. Also, guys, don't forget, there is a Patreon for the Dear Brambling podcast here. Maybe if you have an extra $5 to spare, maybe considering subscribing to the Patreon there. And 100% of the proceeds will be sent right back into the podcast in order to bring the quality content that you're listening to right now. Now, with that being said, feel free to follow Gavin on all of his social medias there and drop him a like. Go follow him on Twitch. Maybe give him a little comment in the chat there. I'm sure he would love it. And yeah, guys, just know that your art is valuable and your art needs to be seen and heard right now. Yeah. And to my bramblings, I just hope you know that I love you so much. And I hope that you feel as though you have the right to express yourself creatively in any aspect that you want. And I will support you. I love you. Bye for now, guys. The Dear Brambling podcast is a podcast dedicated to my little bramblings, to the next generation of humans growing up in the world, as well as to anyone who might be looking for a little more guidance in their life. It is hosted by me, Luke Benoit. Editing and sound design are by Cedar Picture and Sound, MB Productions, and Hideout Productions. The music that you're listening to is called Curiosity, and it's composed by Matthew Grazier at Grazier Music. The logo was designed by Misaki at Hostess Misaki on Twitch TV. And if you'd like to follow me on any social media, you can do so on Twitch as well as on Instagram at Lucatronosaurus Rex. And to anyone who is listening to the podcast this far in, I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I really do appreciate it. I do, however, need to say that this podcast was brought to you for education and entertainment purposes and should not be used as a substitute for actual licensed coaching, counseling, or therapy. If you are experiencing some sort of pain in your life and you need some help, I definitely recommend shopping around for the right coach, counselor, or therapist that is right for you. With all that being said, I really do hope that you're doing something today to take care of yourself, and I do hope that you have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.